Good afternoon. I'm Allison Eckhart. I'm the Deputy Director of Communications for the Office of Science. I want to welcome you to the Established Program to Stimulate Competitive Research, or EPSCoR webinar. Before we begin, I have a couple of housekeeping items. This meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be posted next week to the science.osti.gov website, and I'll drop the link in the chat where that will be. There are closed captions available. If you look at the bottom of your screen, there's a CC button. And there will be a question and answer session after the presentation, and we'll be using the Q&A function in Zoom. So if you drop your questions in the Q&A box, we'll get to those after the session or maybe even during the session. And with that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Andy Schwartz with the Basic Energy Sciences Program. Andy?
Great. Thank you very much, Allison, and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining. As Allison said, this is intended as an informational webinar to give you an overview of the DOE EPSCoR program. EPSCoR is the Established Program to Stimulate Competitive Research, and in particular, the funding opportunity announcement for this program that was released middle of last month. As Allison said, my name is Andy Schwartz from the Office of Basic Energy Sciences. I'm here with my colleague, Tim Fitzsimmons, also in BS, but also, as you see on the screen, and as you'll hear from later, a number of other colleagues, because while this program is managed by the Office of Basic Energy Sciences, it's actually a program that is across the Department of Energy, Office of Science, as well as some of the technology offices, and we'll have some brief comments from various offices throughout the webinar. I have some key dates here. The FOA, as I said, was issued in the middle of last month, so it is available, and we'll provide the links to where you can find that later. I think Allison will also put the links into the chat for you. There are required pre-applications for this funding opportunity announcement, and the due date for those are later this month, 1/25, 5 p.m. Eastern time. That is a essentially hard deadline, so please be aware of that. Those pre-applications will be evaluated, and a subset of them will be encouraged. Some of the applicants will be encouraged to submit applications to this FOA. The application deadline for those will be in early April, at April 4th. We'll talk more about the applications, pre-applications, and applications toward the end of the webinar. So a little bit of background about the DOE EPSCoR program. DOE EPSCoR eligibility. EPSCoR is a program that crosses the federal government. And it is the eligibility criteria used by DOE are those that have been established by NSF. NSF uses a 5-year running average of funding per jurisdiction to determine which states and territories qualify as EPSCoR jurisdictions. The current list, the DOE NSF list, includes 25 states, as well as Guam, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. It does vary over time, of course, because of this annual assessment that is done. And in the past, in recent years, some other states have been eligible, but the current eligibility is shown in this map here. And of course, you can find all of that information on our website. And Allison is also putting that link into the chat for you. What are the goals of the DOE EPSCoR program? The goal is really to emphasize early stage research, fundamental and early stage research that supports DOE's science and energy missions, and improves the capability of these designated jurisdictions to conduct sustainable, nationally competitive scientific and energy relevant research. We hope to jumpstart research capabilities in these jurisdictions through training of the scientists and engineers who will participate in the projects, and particularly training them to do research in energy relevant science and technology. We also hope that the program will build beneficial relationships between these researchers and those who are working at the world-class laboratories managed by DOE. If you're not aware, the Department of Energy operates 17 national labs. It's a huge complex with an incredible wealth of expertise and capabilities, including a whole suite of national user facilities. And the goal one of the goals of the EPSCoR program is to establish strong connections between the researchers in the EPSCoR jurisdictions and those in the DOE laboratory system. The goal, through this broadened participation, DOE EPSCoR seeks to augment the pool, the population, the network of energy-related research performers across the nation. And there's really a big emphasis on that right now, expanding access to our programs through this and other avenues. The EPSCoR funding opportunity announcement is issued annually by the Department of Energy, but there is an alternating type of project that is solicited each year. The current solicitation for this year calls for so-called implementation grants. These are larger awards. I'll talk about the details in a moment. In the alternate years, last year and next year, we issue a solicitation for smaller, what are known as EPSCoR State National Lab Partnership Grants. So the implementation awards are initially 2-year awards with up to $1.5 million per year can be awarded. They can be renewed for 2 subsequent 2-year periods for a total of 6 years potentially. And the renewal awards can be up to $2.5 million per year. What we're looking for is a closely connected, tightly focused research effort among the group of researchers working toward a common theme. As a result, there is a review criteria that looks specifically at that. So in addition to the standard review criteria that are used for all Department of Energy or all Office of Science funding opportunity announcements, we also ask the reviewers to assess the synergism among the PIs and the programmatic focus and likelihood of success of the implementation award, really looking at the group of people and the research that's been proposed as a whole and the likelihood of having impact. Funding is provided, of course, only to institutions in EPSCoR jurisdictions. Unfunded collaborations with other institutions are allowed. And I should point out that that does exclude the DOE National Labs. Funding does not flow to the DOE National Labs, even if they are in an EPSCoR jurisdiction. So I mentioned expanding access. So there's a big emphasis in this and in really all Department of Energy efforts these days on diversity, equity, and inclusion. There's some text here, which I won't read to you, but it states unequivocally that DOE is committed to promoting diversity of investigators and institutions that it supports. And this is done in a variety of ways through language that is in the funding opportunity announcements, encouraging, for example, applications for minority serving institutions, and particularly those that have been historically underrepresented in the portfolio. There also are program policy factors that are taken into account after the merit review when making decisions about selections for awards. Those program policy factors include the following. There are a number of them, but they include the extent to which an application will promote the diversity of supported investigators or promote the diversity of institutions receiving awards. In addition, I'll point out that in this and now all funding opportunity announcements issued by the Office of Science are required to include a so-called peer plan. Peer stands for Promoting Inclusive and Equitable Research. This must be included as part of your application, so please reference the funding opportunity announcement with the specific requirements for what should go into that peer plan and how it should be included in the application. And it is called out as an explicit review criteria. So the merit reviewers will be asked to look at the efficacy of these peer plans when they evaluate all applications. As I mentioned, the EPSCoR program is managed through the Office of Basic Energy Sciences, but we engage with other program offices across the Department of Energy, both in the Office of Science as well as some of the technology offices. And those program offices typically provide up to 10% of co-funding for any award. So the majority of the funding comes through the EPSCoR program, but with matching funds coming from the program office to ensure that the projects that are funded are relevant to the DOE mission, and also to promote engagement of those EPSCoR awardees with the programmatic activities that are happening within these program offices, things like program meetings, principal investigator meetings, et cetera. So the DOE program offices, these other offices are involved in the review process for both pre-applications and applications. And the partnering offices are also encouraged to invite and involve the EPSCoR PIs in the program meetings that those offices have. Subsequent support after an EPSCoR award is obviously through the normal competitive solicitation process, but the hope is that, again, the goal of the EPSCoR program is to promote and strengthen the competitiveness of the researchers in these jurisdictions across the breadth of DOE programs. So now we have a series, and this is where I'm going to take a breath, maybe a drink of water, and turn it over to my colleagues. We have a series of brief overviews of the various program offices that are participating in EPSCoR. So the programs shown here are the program offices within the Office of Science. I won't read them all out to you. I won't read the descriptions to you, but we have the Advanced Scientific Computing Research, Basic Energy Sciences, Biological Environmental Research, Fusion Energy Sciences, high energy physics, nuclear physics, isotope R&D and production, and accelerator R&D and production. I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues now with one slide each to go give you a high-level overview of each of these programs, and then we'll say a few words about some of the technology offices that are involved in EPSCoR as well. So turning it over to Barb Helland.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Andy, and welcome all. And I'm here just to give you a brief background on the Advanced Scientific Computing Research Program that I'm the Associate Director for, or commonly referred to within the department as OSCAR. And OSCAR has its foundation in actually applied math and computer science. We grew out of the Manhattan Project, and we use applied math and computer science to advance the understanding of natural and engineered systems that actually provide the language so that we can understand these systems using our high-end computers that are found in our facilities. But we're also interested in what comes next. And we're preparing for a future of science based on emerging and advanced technologies such as quantum, and what we find as microelectronics expands what we do. I noted our facilities. We are in the midst of deploying the world's first exascale computers, and we also have the world's most advanced scientific network. And we want to combine this with other user facilities across the Office of Science to build a more integrated and open national research infrastructure for all. We've had a long investment with the other programs that you'll hear about today in strategic partnerships, because they're really focused on using computers and advancing the discipline known as computational science. And so we partner with the other programs so that they can fully take advantage of the resources that we put on the floor. But we also have done unique models of partnership to accelerate competitiveness, primarily with vendors and advanced manufacturing and tech companies. And I just want to put a plug in here for our Computational Science Graduate Fellowship that we have been funding since 1991. And with that, I'll turn it back to Andy to talk about BES.
Great. Thank you, Barb. I appreciate that. I also want to, excuse me, before I talk about BES, I want to remind people, if you have questions, you can open up the Q&A box and enter your questions there. Some of them may be answered in writing, and then we'll also use those questions to spur discussion after we get through the presentation. So basic energy sciences at a high level, shown at the top here, basic energy sciences supports discovery science and use-inspired research to solve challenges facing today's advanced technologies for energy, manufacturing, medicine, and other national priorities. We do that in two ways: by supporting academic and national laboratory researchers, particularly with a focus on material sciences and chemical sciences, with programs in geosciences and physical biosciences. Really, the goal here is to try to understand at the atomic and molecular scales the mechanisms and materials and processes that drive these systems. BES also operates a suite of cutting-edge scientific user facilities with specialized state-of-the-art instrumentation. That includes the X-ray light sources, neutron scattering facilities, and nanoscale science research centers. These are facilities that are open to the whole research community on an open access model, from serving thousands of scientists from many fields every year. BES-supported discoveries drive U.S. leadership in science, sustain innovations across diverse technologies, and we hope improved economic and national security, again, by providing foundational scientific understanding of chemical and material systems. These are critical, and they underpin all of the things that we focus on: clean energy, low carbon manufacturing, et cetera, all of the current priorities, as well as some of the topics that Barb mentioned: microelectronics, quantum information sciences, et cetera. These priorities are all supported by materials and chemical systems, and that basic understanding of those systems is critical to driving innovation and competitiveness. And finally, we do fund some larger efforts, including energy innovation hubs and energy frontier research centers. Those, of course, are separate from the EPSCoR program, but I should probably have included here the EPSCoR implementation grants, because the point of these implementation grants is to drive collaborative teams, to support collaborative teams with multidisciplinary skills to attack these problems. And with that, I will move forward and turn it over to Todd Anderson to talk about biological and environmental research.
Hello. Within the biological and environmental research portfolio, we support basic research in genome-enabled biology and in climate and environmental science. Within our biology programs, we're the former initiator of the Human Genome Project, but have since branched out to focus on the genomics of plants, microorganisms, and microbial communities. We're also the pioneers in global atmospheric circulation models, which are now part of some of the world's leading Earth system models. And these models incorporate some of the state-of-the-art artificial intelligence and machine learning techniques on exascale computers with our colleagues in Oscar, providing detailed projections of climate impacts over time and at unprecedented resolution. The BER approach is about understanding very complex Earth and environmental processes to gain the ability to predict behavior of these systems for a variety of beneficial purposes. Our genome biology programs seek to harness the power of biology encoded in the genomes of plants and microorganisms to understand, predict, and even design new biological processes underpinning bioenergy and bioproduct production. Our Earth and environmental research explores the relationships between atmospheric, land, and oceanic systems in Earth system models at a variety of observational scales up to the global scale. Through a combination of environmental research and modeling, the portfolio seeks to resolve key uncertainties that prohibit our ability to make accurate predictions of Earth and environmental processes within the context of a changing climate. Both the BER efforts are part of the DOE's longer-term mission to seek alternative, more sustainable resources for energy and products and be able to predict the environmental impacts of a less carbon-intensive world. BER's research portfolio are supported by three national scientific user facilities. The Joint Genome Institute is a primary source of genomic information and analysis tools that support the program. We're also the administrative home for the Environmental Molecular Sciences Laboratory. It has a suite of analytical capabilities for a variety of research purposes. And we're the home for the Atmospheric Radiation Measurement User Facility. It supports our climate and atmospheric research in the portfolio, providing a combination of stationary and mobile stations that provide a full range of atmospheric measurements across key points across the globe. And with that, I'll pass this on to colleagues in Fusion.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you for joining us here today. Fusion Energy Sciences program aims to expand the fundamental understanding of plasma and its interaction at very high temperatures and densities, with a focus to develop fusion as an energy source, because the potential of fusion to be limitless, carbon-free, clean energy. And some of the priorities of the Fusion Energy Sciences program is to develop the science and technology needs for design of a fusion pilot plant. And for this, the office invests in flexible US experimental facilities such as D3D at General Atomics, international partnerships like ITER being built at France, and larger scale numerical simulations and so on. FES also supports partnerships with private fusion sector to accelerate progress toward development of fusion energy. And this is consistent with administration's bold decadal vision for commercializing fusion energy. FES also invests in transformational technologies, as mentioned by my colleagues, like microelectronics and artificial intelligence, machine learning. FES supports research in following areas. Burning plasma, mainly two categories: burning plasma science, important for fusion energy development, and also discovery-based plasma science. Under burning plasma science, foundational research is supported in these areas. And under long pulse research, these are the topical areas supported through that. And under discovery-based plasma science and technology effort is supported. And there are two main programs. General plasma science focuses on basic and low temperature plasmas, and high energy density laboratory plasma focuses on ionized matter at extremely high temperature and density. And the program also supports measurement innovation element to develop new diagnostics. All these topics and details can be found in FES website, and also FOA 23 SC Open FOA, and program manager contacts are also provided there. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Andy.
Okay, thanks. On to Glenn for high energy physics.
All right, everybody, thanks for joining today. I'm Glenn Crawford, Research Director for the High Energy Physics Program at DOE. And in high energy physics, we like to say we're trying to understand the universe at its most fundamental level, which covers a wide range of experimental, theoretical, and technology R&D activities. We're known for being a very big science with large experiments, like some of the ones you see in the pictures there. It's a Large Hadron Collider at CERN, the Long Baseline Neutrino Facility now under construction at Fermilab and in South Dakota, and at various telescopes across the globe in Chile and elsewhere. So we do global science, we use cutting edge technology, and we have large collaborations, and we also have very small experiments as well, trying to answer very fundamental questions about how the universe works. The collection of institutions that take on this research, and that's postdocs and scientists and grad students all working together on these large complex tools and technologies, come from a variety of institutions. And we are, as Andy said, we're trying to expand our footprint into traditionally underrepresented institutions, which haven't been able to participate at the same level as some of the other institutions, particularly through the EPSCoR program. And so we're very excited about this opportunity here today. Some of the questions that we are trying to address in this research program include things such as the properties of the Higgs boson, which was just discovered 10 years ago, but now is being used as a tool for discovery to probe the nature of the universe. Understanding how neutrinos actually work. They seem to be maybe responsible for why there is matter in the universe at all, and instead of nothing. Trying to understand what dark matter is. After decades, we still don't quite know, but there are a lot of experiments underway to try to actually measure it in the lab and really understand what it is. At the same time, there are many of these experiments at telescopes to understand what is causing the acceleration of the cosmos under the force of dark energy and inflation. And finally, just general searches for new phenomena and new things that we don't expect. Which will lead to, of course, even new directions for the field. And so we welcome all to participate in this exciting science and look forward to answering questions and taking proposals.
Thanks.
Oh, sorry, I'm supposed to hand it off to Tim now.
It's fine. On to Tim.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. My name is Tim Hallman, and I'm the Associate Director for Nuclear Physics. And as you see at the top there, our mission is to discover, explore, and understand all forms of nuclear matter. And that might seem pretty remote from everyday experience, but everything we touch or use and many important applications all rely on the behavior of atoms. And at the center of each one of those atoms is a nucleus, which is a close-packed cluster of protons and neutrons. And so we're very interested, for example, in what configurations of protons and neutrons can actually exist in nature. And you see a graphic there on the right that tells us about some of the ones we know about. But one of our first orders of business is to understand the limits of what can exist. And that's the main thrust, or one of the main thrusts, of a newly commissioned facility at Michigan State University called the Facility for Rare Isotope Beams. So we're all about understanding how the visible matter came into being and how it evolves over most of the 13.6 billion years the universe has existed. And because the matter has evolved and we need to see it at different scales, we operate 4 national user facilities which have different resolutions, if you will, if you want to think of them sort of as microscopes. And so that comprises a very large portion of what we do. And we have of order 200 university research programs that connect to those national user facilities. Certainly very interested in expanding that to, folks in EPSCoR states. Students trained in nuclear physics are in high demand because they bring expertise in nuclear science, accelerator physics, real-time signal processing, high-performance computing, cryogenics, quantum simulators, quantum sensors. You could see the list there. I won't read all of it, but the sense you should take away is that there's a lot of collateral benefit in other technical areas aside from just understanding the science of neutrons. Going forward, we're building a new national user facility called the Electron Ion Collider, which is currently under construction. And the goal here is to understand how inside the protons and neutrons, the interactions of the pieces that are inside actually create matter. If you were able to weigh them, you would see that we think they only weigh a small percentage of the mass of the protons and neutrons. So somehow they interact with each other to create the rest almost 100 times more. And that's one of the goals of the Electron Ion Collider that's going to be built at Brookhaven National Laboratory. It's going to provide unprecedented ability to discover how the mass of everyday objects is dynamically generated by the quarks and gluons inside the protons and neutrons. And I'll turn it back to you, Andy.
Great. On to Ethan for Isotope.
Thanks, Andy. I'm Ethan Balkan. I'm the program manager for radioisotope production R&D within what's known as the Isotope R&D and Production Office, or DOE IP, the Isotope program. We're somewhat unique in the form of a program office within the Office of Science. With respect to, we are a funder of basic science, but we also have the sole congressional authority within the Department of Energy to produce and provision for sale radio unstable isotopes. So with that, it comes with it a multi-pronged mission to produce and distribute the radioisotopes and enriched stable isotopes that are in short supply, maintain the required infrastructure to enable production and processing of those isotopes, conduct R&D on new and improved isotope production and processing techniques, build up the related workforce, and ensure robust domestic supply chains to reduce U.S. dependency on foreign supply to maintain national preparedness. There are a number of very interesting things going on that we typically fund, and all of them are available if you go to the website that's indicated in the FOA. There's some brief blurbs and nice pictures in front of you, and I'm happy to answer any questions later on if you have questions. With that, over to my colleague, Eric Colby.
All right, thank you very much, Ethan. I'm Eric Colby, Director for Accelerator R&D and Production. Welcome all. RDEP supports the other offices of science and indeed all scientific research by doing a number of activities to develop particle accelerator technology. The first of these is cross-cutting basic R&D for accelerators. This includes cross-cutting technologies widely used like ultra-fast lasers, RF power sources. Also perform research in new technologies for scientific facilities. The future, this would be things like superconducting materials research or advanced optical materials for laser systems. The second major activity is to develop innovative solutions for problems outside the DOE Office of Science. Part of our broader mission is to transfer particle accelerator technology into other uses, make it more broadly and societally beneficial. This includes activities to develop compact accelerators for medical and security purposes, and high power accelerators used for environmental cleanup and industrial applications. We play a role strengthening the accelerator community and its broader user groups in industry and academia by making awards that are explicitly multi-institutional and through public-private partnerships. We also facilitate access to national laboratory accelerator R&D capabilities, and be happy to discuss any of this with you further. I turn it over to Andy now.
Great. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. And thanks to all my colleagues across the Office of Science for those nice summaries of each of the programs. As I mentioned, the EPSCoR program extends even beyond the Office of Science to a number of the generically called technology offices within the Department of Energy, the offices that are focused more on applied research technology development. Again, the EPSCoR program focuses on early stage research, but early stage research that is directly relevant to these programs. And there's 6 of them listed here: the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, Fossil Energy and Carbon Management, Nuclear Energy, Office of Electricity, Cybersecurity, Energy Security, and Emergency Response, and Environmental Management. We have representatives here today from 3 of the offices: EERE, FECM, and OE. So I'm going to turn it over to them. We have links here, and as well as in the FOA, to each of these programs, where you can find more information about these offices and their research priorities. But I will start now with energy efficiency and renewable energy and turn this over to Rebecca.
Thanks so much, Andy. So the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, or EERE, is really focused on the applied application of research and development into small-scale deployment mechanisms to be able to identify opportunities around the equitable transition of domestic America to net zero greenhouse gas emissions, which is intended to be economy-wide by no later than 2050. The administration's goals of a good paying jobs for the American people, which has a particular focus on workers and historically disadvantaged communities, has been really a key focus of EERE for quite some time, but has certainly come into greater foci as we move into through this administration. So we have 4 sectors. Our Office of Operations, and then on the technical side is an Office of Sustainable Transportation, which is comprised of vehicles, hydrogen and fuel cells, and bioenergy. Our Office of Renewable Power, which is our water, wind, geothermal, and solar offices. And then our Office of Energy Efficiency, which is a little bit of a misnomer against our parent title office, which is essentially our Buildings and Industry team, which is our buildings technology offices, our industrial decarbonization energy office, our advanced manufacturing team, and then we do work through that office in applying standards and codes management. So looking forward to working with all of you, and happy to help support science today.
Great, thank you very much, Rebecca. And now we move forward to the Office of Fossil Energy and Carbon Management, and Ayaka.
Thank you, Andy. These are the portfolio of carbon management technologies that my office prioritizes this fiscal year. In terms of early stage research that supports the energy earthshots, I like to highlight carbon dioxide removal, and where we found a lot of work, lower TRL work towards the cost targets of the carbon negative shot. The bipartisan infrastructure bill authorizes us to provide up to $15 million in prizes to boost the R&D of breakthrough direct air capture technologies. But we invest the direct ocean capture, biomass with carbon removal and storage, mineralization, and other approaches as well. We're also looking for tailored emissions measurement, reporting, and verification approaches for the specific types of projects in our portfolio. We also contributed to the hydrogen shot. Our focus on the hydrogen production side is the feedstocks, ranging from waste plastics to biomass. On the hydrogen use side, we found advanced material and turbine research that support burning 100% hydrogen for power generation. We have a very active university turbine systems research program. Finally, we also found a cross-cutting research that benefit all these areas, including the point source carbon capture and storage, where we aim to use artificial intelligence to help discover new materials, optimize processes, and run autonomous systems. With that, back to you, Andy.
Great, thank you very much, Ayaka. Appreciate that. And then, as I said, we have one more representative, Chris Irwin, here from the Office of Electricity. We don't have a slide, but I'll turn it over to Chris to say a few words about the priorities of OE.
Hey, everybody. Chris Irwin in the Office of Electricity, which is essentially the office of the electric grid. I wish I had a green bannered slide with a lot of text on it for you to absorb, but I don't. I wanted to sort of just talk a little bit about our priorities. Is when you look at the EPSCoR states on the map that Andy showed up front, it's really interesting is that the shape that it makes actually coincides with some of the major seams in the grid where transmission is separated from each other, which is a very important thing for us to understand, as well as the primary source of renewable power in our country. It is basically an inverted T, where right down the middle of the country, we have amazing wind resources that we currently do not possess the ability to export to where it's needed in the country. And then across the bottom of the T, we have incredible solar resources with the same challenges in the system. At the same time that we have this wonderful opportunity, we have a mission to completely decarbonize the grid and to move away from the fossil resources that we've relied on historically. So there's a tremendous challenge associated with that. Compounding our opportunities is the fact that we are seeking to electrify all loads throughout the United States and not rely on fossil fuels for vehicles, for industrial applications, for building and home heating and things like that. So really the opportunity space for the grid is at a tremendous crossroads. And so we have a very large appetite for research in these areas. We're interested not just in sort of fundamental technologies, but fundamental ideas about networking and creating a control system, not out of 10,000 points, but a control system out of tens of millions of control points. It presents a lot of academic and scientific research opportunities there. So I'm excited to represent the Office of Electricity, and we hope we can attract your innovation and potential towards our ideas.
Great. Thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate your taking the time to be here. So, okay, so now we've given you sort of the big picture, the 10,000-foot view, what the programs are about, where the priorities are. Again, lots more information available on the various websites that we've shown links to and that are available in the funding opportunity announcement. I'm now going to turn over the microphone, so to speak, to my colleague, Tim Fitzsimmons, who is the program manager for the EPSCoR program, to talk about some of the more details. We have a handful more slides getting into some of the details of the funding opportunity announcement itself, how to apply, what you should keep in mind as you work toward submitting an application or pre-application and application should you choose to do so. So over to you, Tim.
Yeah, thank you, Andy, and thanks to all my colleagues from all the other DOE offices. Look forward to working with you again in the EPSCoR process this year. We've already noted the pre-application are required. Please note that you may submit one and only one pre-application, and that could be either for a new or it may be for a renewal if there's an existing implementation grant there, but it may not be for both. Please note that tables of individuals who should not serve as reviewers must be submitted as part of the pre-application process. More details are provided in the sub-bullets below or in the text of the FOA. And as I said, please follow that because that is very important to the review process. We request that in the FOA that all applicants list the relevant DOE program office and relevant program staff in that office on the cover page for both the pre-application and again on the application. If that person isn't known or the office isn't known, you're welcome to contact me via email before the deadlines so that I can help you on that process. Pre-applications do have to be submitted via PAMS as shown here and not grants.gov. And then we note the importance of doing a clear, concise description of objectives and technical approach to the proposed research. And of course, we evaluate them on the responsiveness to the objectives of the FOA, the merit, the appropriateness and the proposed research approaches and impact. And we also use them for the selection as aid, if you will, for finding potential reviewers who are relevant to the topic matter. For applications, again, if there are any updates for collaborators and conflicts of interest, please also include an updated version with the full application. The A note for multi-institutional projects, the lead institution should require and must actually request a larger percentage of the budget than other institutional partners. Please include your biographical sketches and current and pending supported as noted in this bullet. And for the applications, they are submitted via grants.gov, not PAMS. And of course, we note that the applications are due April 4th at 11:59 p.m. That is usually a hard deadline, and late submissions are very rarely accepted. So the merit review process, peer review, following criteria listed in decreasing order of significance, although comparable importance. Office of Science Standard are the first 5, scientific technical merit approach, resources, reasonableness and appropriateness of the proposed budget, quality and efficacy of promoting inclusive and equitable research, or the peer plan. And for EPSCoR specific, we, as Andy noted previously, synergism of the PIs in the program and programmatic focus, as well as likelihood of success of the implementation grant. Next. Again, applications, pre-applications are due the 25th this month at 5 p.m. Eastern time. And again, through the PAM system, applications are due April 4th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. And they're submitted through grants.gov, and award selections should be completed June 2023, and awards at some point later in fiscal 2023. And so here's a listing of the websites again for DOE programs of interest on a high level. The sub-programs in the Office of Science may be found through the Office of Science website. And as noted previously, the webinar is being recorded, and slides and recording will be posted on the full page listed above. And I'm, of course, available for email for any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you, Tim, for that. Again, lots of information there. I know we went past it pretty quickly, but these slides will be posted, as noted by Tim, on the website where the FOA is posted, and a recording of this presentation will be available shortly as well. So this brings us to the end of the presentation period. We have some time left for questions. I noticed there have been a few that have come into the Q&A. That's great. There is a Q&A window in Zoom. You click on that button and pops open the window. You can submit your questions. You cannot speak in this webinar format, so that is the way to submit your questions. And as Tim said, if you have a question that is not answered today, or you have additional questions as you work toward submission, Tim is the program contact, and he can answer or get an answer to any questions that you have. So I'll stop there and turn it over to Allison, who I believe will be moderating our Q&A session.
Yes. Like Andy said, go ahead and submit your questions. We have one in the chat that I will ask. I think maybe Tim or Andy will be able to answer this. Education seems to be a big component of the implementation grant. Is there guidance on what may merit a good balance of education and primary research?
Okay, so I'll take the first stab at that, and others are certainly welcome to join in. It does depend a little bit on what one means by education. What I would have said is the training is a big component of the implementation grants, training of researchers at all stages of their research career, including students. So that's where it crosses over with the educational component. We don't have specific guidance on the balance. I mean, these are research grants, research awards, and so we are funding research, and including students, postdocs, early career researchers as part of that. Those your research proposal is absolutely critical, and a component of it, as I said, the goal of the program is to build up capability and expertise within the EPSCoR jurisdictions, and part of that certainly is the people. So supporting people is, as you note, as the questioner noted, a really important part of the implementation awards, but integrating those people into a research program, into innovative, forward-looking research program is what you should think about, and making sure that you have the right mix of people to do the research that you've proposed to do.
Can you clarify success in terms of the implementation grant? What is a successful outcome?
Okay, that's a difficult question to answer in a short amount of time. I'll say a few words. Tim might want to weigh in. Again, these are research proposals, so the research output, and particularly since we're talking about basic and early stage research, there's an expectation of publication. In other words, the results of the work should be published and disseminated to the community, to the research community. We're also looking, as I said, through this EPSCoR program to establish capabilities and expertise in these at these institutions. And so success is certainly doing that. How well has this team come together? How well have the people who are put together into this team succeeded in building a collaborative research environment that is pushing forward the research that's been proposed? Tim, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you got it covered.
Okay. Well, we don't currently have any other open questions. So if you have a question, go ahead and submit it to the chat. Anything, Andy, you want to reiterate for the audience while we let people think about their questions?
Sure, I can try to say a few words, give people some time. I think that, and we tried to point to it, but I would remind people that this webinar was meant to be an overview, but the details really are in the funding opportunity announcement, and so everyone should be clear that the place to look is to go get if you haven't yet read it and you're interested, please open it up. The documents can be a little dense, understandably, but I encourage you and your institutional representatives, if you are the PIs, to spend the time reading the funding opportunity announcement to understand both what we are looking for scientifically and technically, and make sure that your research that you're proposing is aligned with that, and then also to make sure that you're meeting the sort of the requirements of the funding opportunity announcement, that the right elements are included in your pre-application, that the right elements, if encouraged, that the right elements are included in your application to ensure that you have an eligible submission. And again, those details are all in the funding opportunity announcement.
All right, we have no other questions at the moment. Like Andy said, like Tim said, you can find contact information in the FOA. So if you have more questions, find their contact information there. I did put in the chat a link to sign up for more information from the Office of Science. So if you want to receive emails about Office of Science, you can go there. And I think that's probably it. Andy,
I just wanted to say there was one question that was asked and answered by Mike in the Q&A, but I was going to. So the question about can an office such as FECM or EERE be listed as the primary relevant DOE program office? And the answer, as Mike said, is absolutely yes. So I see your finger, Tim. I'll come to you in a second. So yes, the programs that are listed in the funding opportunity announcement, which includes both the Office of Science programs as well as the 6 technology programs I referred to, are all equally relevant to apply to. Tim, did you want to add to that?
Sure, and indeed, it happens not infrequently that more than one program or office is listed because the questions being proposed for research by the team on the implementation grant are touching on questions that are relevant then to more than one DOE program.
We've got a couple of questions that have come in. What is the best way to engage a national lab when funds can't go to them?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'll say a few words, and Tim might want to. And this is true if you want to engage other institutions, they're not in EPSCoR states as well. Collaboration is important, and I think finding the researchers who are working in your space who might be interested in collaborating in not as a funded collaborator, but an unfunded collaboration, I think is important. The national labs have lots of information on their websites about what work they're doing and what space they're doing research in, and encourage you to go there if you're not familiar. If you're aware of specific researchers at the national labs, I would encourage you to reach out to them, see about their interest in engaging in some kind of a collaboration. Engaging with the individuals is great, a way to go about trying to find those opportunities. Tim, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, my usual answer to that is look what they're publishing. If they're publishing in an area, it's likely they're supported and might be open to a collaboration.
And I would say that broadly, the national labs are interested in and encouraged to engage the broader research community for sure. So there should be interest from them at their end as well.
Okay. Tim, you want to say something?
Yeah, I would just add that most of those national user facilities have user organizations. And that might be another place of contact to get in touch with existing users of those facilities and find out the research that's being done and who's collaborating.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. That's actually a great point, and actually reminds me to say that the user facilities, as I mentioned, and this includes the ones I mentioned in the BS space, but we have computing facilities that Oscar runs and biological environmental facilities that BER runs and other facilities. These are open, as I mentioned, these are open access facilities. These facilities are available to all researchers domestically and internationally, and funded by whatever resources. So I think taking advantage of those facilities, which many of which are cited at national labs, is a great opportunity to engage the national lab system.
Okay. Another question, the pre-app was reduced to 3 pages as compared to 4 pages in the last FOA. Is there any reason, any suggestions on how we should think about writing 3 pages as compared to 4?
I would say, Tim may correct me, I don't think there was any specific reason except that we had reevaluated how much information we need in order to do an evaluation of these pre-applications. So, the guidance, is to read what's written in the FOA for what is asked for in the pre-applications, and use the space you have to do that. Use the 3 pages efficiently. We don't ask for budget information, for example, in the pre-application. We're really looking at the science and scientific and technical component of what is being proposed to get an assessment of the competitiveness of the applications, of the pre-applications. Excuse me. Tim, anything to add?
All right, I don't see any other questions at the moment. So we can go ahead and wrap up, I think. Any final words?
No, I just want to thank everyone, those who attended. Appreciate your taking the time. Hope it was valuable. Again, plenty of information on the website, and as noted here on the bottom of the screen that's still shared. Tim Fitzsimmons, thank him for his leadership of this program for many, many years. It's a really important and challenging program given the breadth of topics and the breadth of offices that it covers in the department, and Tim does a fantastic job, and he's a great resource. So if you have further questions, please feel free to reach out to Tim. He will either know the answer or help you find out where to get it.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon.